Thanks for coming. Lillian meant many things to a lot of people clearly, and many being, first of all, 6 children. I just want to mention something that I found out very recently, and Rabbi, I'll need you as a fact checker here, but I found out that Teitelbaum, my mother's maiden name, means palm tree. Is that true? Please say yes.
Yes.
And I had not heard the fable about the palm tree, but she certainly was a broad, healthy, broad tree, and she had deep roots. And I would like to talk about our mothers being a true Jewish matriarch who did keep her family going after our dad got sick. She was a deeply practical gal, and she used to say that it was a talent to, in her words, sling a buck. And she certainly knew how to do that. In the house just a few days ago, my brother Mark showed me a photograph from the, I presume, late 40s that I had never seen of our mom as a beautiful teenager, young woman at Coney Island Beach. And the story which she didn't talk about was that she sold candy at the beach, at Coney Island Beach. Presumably she bought wholesale and sold double retail. And she put herself through Brooklyn College, I suppose, that way. And as a mother of 6, she certainly knew how to sling that buck. She made money seemingly from air. When our dad got sick in the late 70s, she supported us all with a booming flea market business. It was the internet of the 80s. It was the hot thing, and she was in it. She really knew how to survive and how to thrive, and I know all of us have inherited that practicality gene. We run our lives well. We know how to make things happen, and we learned that from our mom. She, in a few words, she knew how to live, and I love her. She gave me and all of us so much, and I'm going to think of her a lot. And Mom, you did right by me, Mom. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi. And thank everyone for coming today. It really means a lot to me, and I know to all of my brothers and sisters, and to my mother as well. It's a tremendous tribute to, as you heard, just a wonderful, wonderful Jewish wife. And we say, Eshet Chayil Mei Yimtza Derech, a righteous woman who can find. And my mother, as has been said, was truly a righteous woman. Her commitment to Yiddishkeit was completely unbounded to her very last days. I wanted to talk a little bit about the 3 pillars of Judaism: tefillah, or prayer, tzedakah, or charity or good deeds, and Torah, or learning. The 3 pillars that really our faith is built upon. And how my mother was completely involved in all of them. One of the dreams of her life was to be able to go to Israel and pray at the Western Wall, the Kotel. And thank God, a year before she lost her sight, she was able to go with her cousin to Israel and fulfill that lifelong dream. To her last days, she went to shul as regularly as possible, as her physical condition would permit. She was really shut in through this terrible winter we had, and one of the first things she did when she was able to finally get out of the house was to go to shul. It was very important for her. She was in shul for Pesach, and just unbelievable physical commitment to something that really, if you looked at her and her condition, you would say, I don't know how it's even possible. Tzedakah, she always, as my sister said, was there for the less fortunate. It was amazing the number of charities that she gave to. She just gave of herself so much, financially, physically, emotionally, whatever she could do to help the Jewish people, she did, probably beyond her means. And then learning Torah. There's an organization, a wonderful organization based in New York called Derot, Generations, and their charter is to help elderly Jews to continue to learn. And she completely availed herself of their services by telephone. She had a class schedule. She would actually attend classes on a regular scheduled basis and learn from her bed. She wasn't even physically able to get out of bed at times, but she didn't miss a class. And I think really from her example, I've tried to model my life and follow the same precepts, the same 3 pillars of Judaism that she taught us through example. It was interesting when I was sitting in shul yesterday and we were reading this week's Parsha, this week's Torah portion. We talked about all of the Jewish holidays and what God wanted for us in terms of our observance. And I remember even as a child, I went to public school, but my mother was very insistent that there was no Jewish holiday that I was going to school on, and I went to shul. The same shul that my mother went to, Rabbi Zamir's shul, Temple Shalom in Westbury. And some of my fondest memories, I remember going in a sukkah for the first time in my life, and observing Sukkot there. Just many, many memories. To this day, any time there was going to be a yontif, I knew I would either call or hear from my mother. She wanted to know what I was doing, where I would be, who I would be with. She wanted me to know what she would be doing to observe the yontif, and she certainly wanted me to know what Annie had prepared for her, what she'd be eating. Very important part of the yontif. And just before Pesach, the last phone call I had in the car going up to the Passover hotel was with my mother. And she was just so excited that we would be there with Josh and Miriam and Hastai. And wanted to know all about it. And I understand she also spoke with Josh and Miriam and Hastai. I know that it was very special. I got an email from Miriam's parents out in Los Angeles that before Pesach she made a point of calling them as well. I think she probably called everyone. It was just her thing to do. And those are the memories I have. I think, as Karen said, she was the driving, shaping force in all of our lives. And I really do give credit to her for much of what I've become today. And I thank her and I thank Hashem for that. And again, I just want to thank everyone for coming today.
Again, thank you everyone for coming here today to honor my mother's memory and to support the Harrison family. I didn't prepare anything, but I'd like to speak to the perseverance of my mother. I'll try to keep this brief because I know these events tend to go a long time. It was almost exactly 20 years ago. My mother took gravely ill. She had kidney failure. She lost her eyesight. She was in a hospital not far from here. David was living abroad, we all gathered around her bed. I recall vividly the doctor pulling us aside, the children, saying, and I quote, "Spend as much time with your mother as possible."
Right.
Telling us 20 years ago she may not be coming home from the hospital. Well, she came home from the hospital. Her kidneys came back and she got off dialysis. Unfortunately, blindness was almost always irreversible. She was blind, she was in bed. It was difficult even 20 years ago for her to get around it, but she got out when she had to and when things permitted. She went to shul, she enjoyed going out, getting her hair done, her nails. She made, as was stated earlier, the best part of her life during the most challenging part of her life. There's a lot to be said about that.
Really?
Most people, when the chips are down, if you will, they tend to fall down. But my mother, she persevered through that. It was 20 years. That's when Annie came into our lives. That's when Wayne stepped up and did the unthinkable and helped our mother day in and day out. So this is a testimonial to my mother and to how she helped, again, when my father took ill. She was, like Karen said, she was in her 30s. Father got very sick. She had to support the family. And she did. 6 kids in a house, none of whom were even starting college. Remarkable. Imagine being put in that situation. I couldn't. And she did it, and she pulled it off. We all went to college, we all graduated college, and we're all successful because of her and because of my father, who she'll be lying next to shortly. And he's ready to have her there. So again, thank you, Mom, for everything you've done for us, for stepping up during the most difficult of times, and raising our family and doing the right thing by us. So thank you, Rabbi. Thank you again, everyone, for coming.
Our mother, Leah, was a true woman of valor and a Sheikh Hayil. The love my mom, our mom, exemplified for me and my siblings, my family, brothers and sisters, for us, and in a large part for me, Zeva Victor, was so wonderfully magnanimous. Mom really knew about what she was doing. In the future ahead, I plan to devote my life toward our mother's ideals and live as she would like me to be, a person as beautifully intricate as Mom was her entire life. Thank you, Mom. Thank you. There won't be a day in my life as my other siblings that I won't reflect back. I'll remember my mom for the 20 years that after she lost her sight, that she was with us. Shalom, Toda Rabah Leah, my guiding mother. I love you.
Before I call on David, the effort you put in, Wayne, for 20 years, there are no words that can express your efforts. 20 years, every day, you were there for her. You were her rock. You were her foundation. And she was very, very proud of you. Very proud. I remember the day she called my office when you graduated from Nassau Community, how proud she was. And last night I remember hearing how proud the entire family was. We went out for dinner to celebrate. I can't count on one hand, maybe I can, but there aren't a lot of people that are willing, and not just willing, but able to do what you did. You talked about following in her footsteps of being a giver. When we talk about being a giver, think of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Why did he need to create Adam Rishon? Why did he need to create Adam? This entity called Adam. And that is, he created Adam because Hashem is the ultimate giver. And in order to be a giver, he needed something similar to himself to give to. And our role as human beings on planet Earth are to be givers. Our role is to emulate HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Our role is to emulate God. And if God is the ultimate giver, our role is to emulate him, is to be givers. And you exemplify what it means to be a giver. I think we all need to take a lesson from you. Use you as a role model. David?
Thank you, and thank you everyone for coming this morning. I apologize, but I will have to once again thank first Annie. You are such a rare soul, and anybody who's dealt with elder care knows how difficult it is to find somebody who is so confident and compassionate and reliable. You name it, I can't think of enough adjectives. And Annie, there is no way, if we had thanked you every day, which we didn't, but if we had thanked you every day, it still wouldn't be enough. Our gratitude, it just can't be expressed in words. You are an angel. You were a friend, not only a caregiver. You were a friend and a true companion. And I'll venture to say became somewhat of a soulmate to my mother. She could not have stayed in the house without you. Wayne, anybody who knows any of us, or especially all of us, knows that there is virtually nothing that all six of us agree on. You are absolutely one thing that we all agree on. And it's worth mentioning that my mother was not the first person where Wayne stepped up and took care of. My father, years before, my father, after so many different health incidents, came down with cancer and had a very difficult death for himself and for the family. In 1986, he passed in February of 1987. And once again, Wayne was the person who was there the most. The rest of us were there when we could, when our lives would allow. But on the other hand, Wayne I'll say he put parts of his life aside for my father. And then just a few years later, when my mother went blind, for my mother, and that was 20 years ago. And the sacrifice you have made is just beyond words. And both you and Annie, without either one of you, there is no question she would not have been able to live the way she did. She would not have been able to stay in the house that our parents bought right after I was born in 1965. And I'll save you the trouble of doing the math. I'm 39. She would not have been able to do that without both of you. And that was what she wanted, and she spent all her days until it was just a few days, her last days in the hospital, which of course she didn't want to go to. And if there's a silver lining in all of this for you, Wayne, it's that you had the good sense to parlay this experience and this talent you have into a very noble career. And it's very telling that with home health aides, like I said, it's hard to find a good one. It's especially hard to find someone like you. There's so much more demand than supply, and I know it's something that you'll pursue with a passion and with caring, and it can't be outsourced, so that's good. I want to talk a bit about Mom's experience at Winthrop Hospital, because it was really quite admirable. My mother suffered the kind of stroke, the kind of severe stroke that really there was nothing they could do medically. So the care and the treatment that she got there, and that we all got, all 6 of us were there earlier this week, it was all about explaining what was going on and caring and compassion and guiding us. And to that end, the staff at Winthrop Hospital was just so incredible, every one of them, patient, caring, compassionate, and so competent. I want to talk about one person in particular. It was Wednesday night that all of 6 of us were kind of at a crossroads and trying to figure out, execute Mom's wishes, where this was going. And we asked to speak to the neurosurgeon who was reviewing her case. Dr. Holtzman had office hours, and Wednesday night, you remember there was a very severe thunderstorm, very severe weather. He came to the hospital after his office hours just to speak to us. It was about 9 p.m. or 9:30 when he got there. And he came in and he was all wet, and he so patiently and so competently explained exactly what was going on. And not only what was going on, but gave us so much perspective of how things have changed medically and with attitudes, and how patients of this type are treated, which led us to realize this doctor was easily into his 70s. And he was there at 9:30 at night in a thunderstorm. It's just unbelievable. And I'll relay one more anecdote about the experience at Winthrop, formerly Nassau Hospital. Unfortunately, it's an institution that we were all very, very familiar with, mainly because of my father, and so many health episodes, and most of them did take place at that fine institution. Me being the youngest, it was arguably toughest for me, and I spent a lot of time there visiting Dad. And one thing my mom would, almost every visit became a ritual to kind of lift us a little bit, because you need that, is to visit the maternity ward and view the newborn babies. Now, there's a couple of points there. First, if you think about the maternity ward within a hospital, it is the only place in that institution that is joyful. It's the only good reason for a patient or a visitor to be in a hospital. And I mean, who could not be lifted, no matter how down you are? Who could not find joy in viewing a room full of healthy newborn babies? Okay, now I could tell by some of your expressions that a light bulb just went off, and you're going to do the same thing. And all I ask is, when you do that, is that you remember that this was Lillian Harrison's idea. But what does it say about Lillian Harrison? Again, the one place in the hospital that's joyful, that's positive. It's that one nugget in an otherwise field, you know, a minefield of sadness and sorrow. And she had that ability. That's a metaphor for it. She would find that good nugget in whatever we would do, and no matter how down we were, how tough things got and the challenges we faced, she would find that one positive aspect and focus on it and pursue it. So what happened? I guess it was about 2 a.m., Karen, that we remembered this and got the idea to go see the newborn babies. Now, those of you who know me will understand that even though I did spend a lot of time in this hospital and visited the newborn section many times, I had no idea where it was or how to get there. Okay, so we started asking people, and it was actually a janitor, a maintenance person, who immediately recognized our condition and put down his tools and practically took us by the hand and walked us to the maternity ward at 2:30 in the morning. Now, unfortunately, even the maternity ward is quiet at 2:30 in the morning, and the blinds were drawn, so we couldn't see the newborns,
Oh, we saw
which
one
is
baby.
something.
You saw one,
We
George.
saw one, but it was generally quiet, and this is something my kids all very conveniently forgot as soon as we brought them home from the hospital. But even when we were walking out of the maternity ward, we saw the same man, and he asked us again, "Did you find it okay?" And again, this is just, you know, it just speaks to all of the staff, the attitude at that fine institution, and we're so grateful that she was able to spend her final days in a place that cared for her and cared for us and allowed her to maintain her dignity as Wayne and Annie did for the 20 years prior in her own house. And thank you so much. It means so much to her. Thank you.
Can I add one thing? I'm just going to add one thing. I believe that you, David, were once one of the newborns in Winthrop Hospital.
Sorry.
Is that right? You were?
Winthrop?
Okay.
You.
Was Minnie Hill Hospital?
Mental
Okay.
Hospital.
There you go.
Yep.
Stop and start again.
Pearl. It may be lost to us, but there is still a pearl, but in a different place. And the fact that we don't see it doesn't change that reality. And so too it is with the soul of a human being. Its beautiful characteristics never change. The soul lives on in the beyond, but above all, it lives on in the hearts of all of those whom it touched during its lifetime. May Lillian's memory be a source of strength and comfort in time to come to all of those who have sustained this loss. Now say the memorial prayer. Please rise.